appears this individual was with an intent. So if this was somebody who just was and mayhem and death in New York City, certainly there'd be a lot of other targets in and around on the street outside the building or in any other part of New York City. So if you see with the way that he was walking into this building, it was with intent and with a design to get into a specific place in that building, I believe. You know, Natasha, it's interesting is that over my career, I've actually been in that building as a visitor a number of times. And I can tell you that the lobby security is very tight. They have a security desk where you need to sign in. People just can't walk in off the street and say, I want to go up to a certain office or visit someone without being invited. And then there's also automatic or electronic security portals that people need to pass through in order to go into the elevator bank. So it's very tightly secured, and it sounds as though with the paid detail, the off-duty police officer was there as additional precaution by building management, either just out of an abundance of precaution, or we don't know whether or not there was any pre-information about somebody who may have been making threats against someone in the building. But you know, Tasha, that building, as was mentioned by Linda Schmidt and others, is that it has a number of high-profile organizations from Blackstone Investments to the NFL. I think even the company, the building management company, is well known that has offices in that building. So it's not just the companies, but also there are, you know, pretty well-known personalities associated with those companies that are also in the building. So we don't know at this point who or why.
Donald Trump entering the week in a position.
I mean, when you look at that picture, it's unbelievable. He's got sunglasses on. It just seemed like he's walking with a mission. And then he has an AR-15 out there just right by his. It's surprising to see that.
Well, most certainly it's surprising to see it. And having worked really all my career in New York City, I can tell you is that, you know, as much as New Yorkers kind of look the other way when they see all kinds of different things happening on the street, certainly when you would see something like that, immediately draw your attention, and you know that's not supposed to be. He wasn't dressed as a police officer. There was no intent to kind of disguise it. He was carrying it out in the open. You know, the other part of this, too, is that there's reports that this individual, the shooter, is connected with or has lived in or came from Nevada, perhaps Las Vegas. So I'd probably say at this point, the investigation is quickly ensuing to where folks from the FBI, where I used to work many years ago, are now working to identify who else possibly was aware of his plans. Who else could he been associated with? Checking, perhaps getting an immediate search warrant to search his residence, where they may look at computers or other writings that he may have, just to understand both why, but more importantly, more immediately is, are there any other people who are out there with a similar intent or who are co-collaborators who need to be brought in and brought to justice?
Yeah. All right. We have to leave the conversation there. Bill Daley, thank you so much for joining me.
You're very welcome.
Well, our breaking news coverage continues. Sources say
that off-duty officer was there. He was working as security for the building. We know that. We also know that the suspect in all of this was identified as Shane Tamura of Nevada. That's according to two people briefed on the investigation, telling that to the associate. Sources say he fatally shot himself. So I would imagine we're going to get some of these pieces of information, some of these details at this very present in real time.
What took place? And our hearts are heavy. 5 innocent people shot tonight. We lost 4 souls to another senseless act of gun violence, including a member of the New York City Police Department, Officer Islam. He served in the 47th Precinct. He was just 36 years old and a 3.5-year veteran of the department. He was doing what he does best, and all members of the police department carry out. He was saving lives. He was protecting New Yorkers. He's an immigrant from Bangladesh, and he loved this city. And everyone we spoke with stated he was a person of faith and a person that believed in God and believed in living out the life of a godly person. He embodies what this city is all about. He's a true blue New Yorker, not only in a uniform he wore, but in his spirit and energy of loving this city. And early tonight, I met with the officer's family. I I told them that he was a hero, and we admire him for putting his life on the line. This was his dad's only son. I think about Jordan, my child, and it's unimaginable to experience a loss of this magnitude. And 3 of the innocent civilians are also dead. 2 males and 1 female, and another male is seriously injured, fighting for his life in critical condition because of the violent, despicable attack. Additionally, the shooter is dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. To be clear, 6 total tonight died, 1 including the perpetrator. And I'm sorry, 6 total was shot tonight, 1 including the perpetrator. No words can describe this act of evil and the life of others who are innocent. And no words can fill the void that has been left by this tragedy. Our hearts break for the families and friends of the victims. We pray for the swift and safe recovery of the injured. The horrific crime reminds us all how easy it is to gain access to a gun. Gun violence has scarred so many neighbors and ripped apart too many families across this entire country. And we will continue the fight to do all we can to protect our city. But tonight we mourn for those who were killed. And we pray for the families as they go through this painful moment. And as I stated, 5 innocent people were shot. And the perpetrator was shot. We will continue to do what we do as a city, and that's fight to protect innocent New Yorkers. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
Thank you, sir. The information that I'm about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At 6:28 p.m., the 911 call center started receiving multiple 911 calls for an active shooter inside of 345 Park Avenue at 52nd Street in Manhattan. What happened next is under an active investigation. Details are still coming in, but here's what we know so far. Surveillance video shows a male exit a double-parked black BMW on Park Avenue between 51st and 52nd Streets, carrying an M4 rifle in his right hand. He walks towards the building's entrance. That individual was seen exiting the BMW alone. The building's security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire. He makes his way to the elevator bank, where he shoots a security guard who was taking cover behind the security desk. 1 additional male is shot in the lobby, per his own statement from the hospital. The shooter then calls the elevator, which opens in the lobby. A female exits that elevator, and he allows her to walk past him unharmed. He goes up to the 33rd floor, which is route and management, and begins to walk the floor, firing rounds as he traveled. 1 person was struck and killed on that floor. He then proceeds down a hallway and shoots himself in the chest. In total, we have 5 victims shot, our officer and 4 other innocent civilians, plus the shooter. The shooter is believed to be Shane Tamura, a 27-year-old male with a Las Vegas address. The vehicle is registered in Nevada to Mr. Tamura. Inside of that vehicle, officers found a rifle case with rounds, a loaded revolver, ammunition, and magazines, a backpack, and medication prescribed to Mr. Tamura. The vehicle was searched by our bomb squad and found to be clear of any explosives. The initial investigation shows that Mr. Tamura's vehicle traveled cross-country through Colorado on July 26th, then Nebraska and Iowa on July 27th, and then in Columbia, New Jersey, as recently as 4:24 p.m. today. The vehicle entered New York City shortly thereafter. According to our law enforcement partners in Las Vegas,
Manhattan, after at least 2 people were shot, 1 police officer.
His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location. 345 Park Avenue is a commercial office building whose tenants include the NFL, Rudin Management, KPMG, and Blackstone. At this time, 4 of the 5 victims are deceased, including our NYPD cop. Our officer was transported here to New York Presbyterian along with 1 male civilian, the lone shooting survivor, who is in critical but stable condition at this time. 2 other civilians, 1 male and 1 female, both deceased, were brought to Bellevue. The 4th civilian is a female who was found dead on the 33rd floor of the location. Additionally, there are 4 other victims being treated for minor injuries sustained in their attempts to flee the scene. Victims' names are being withheld at this time, pending family notification. Officers from our Special Operations Division are currently conducting a secondary sweep of the entire building. I want to be very clear. We believe this to be a lone shooter, and there is no longer an active threat to the public. But today, 4 innocent victims are dead. Among them is NYPD police officer Didarul Islam, 36 years old, 4 years on the job. Officer Islam was married with 2 young boys. His wife is pregnant with their 3rd child. He's assigned to the 4-7 precinct in the Bronx. He was doing the job that we asked him to do. He put himself in harm's way. He made the ultimate sacrifice, shot in cold blood, wearing a uniform that stood for the promise that he made to this city. He died as he lived, a hero. I want to extend my profound sympathies to all of the victims and their families, and to the brave NYPD cops who today lost a brother. There are still many questions that we have to answer, and we will answer them. But for now, our city is in mourning for the innocent lives lost. May their memories be a blessing. Pat. Sorry.
Patrick Henry Prey. This is a devastating night for our city, for our police department. Pure evil came to the heart of our city and struck innocent people. And one of our police officers who were protecting those people. We lost 4 people tonight in our hero brother who gave his life for this city. He was a hardworking police officer who was proud, we know, from hearing from his family, to put on that uniform and shield of a New York City police officer every day and went out and did his job. And he went out every single day to provide for his family, whether it was overtime or whatever he had to do to provide for this family. That's what he did on a daily basis. And his family is devastated. A wife losing a husband who provided for that family. A father who's not going to see his son again. And our hearts of every New York City police officer right now is hurting. We're hurting for our brother police officer who we lost. We're hurting for that family. We're hurting for all the victims and hurting for all the families of the victims. And we're all asking, why? Why did pure evil come here? And we know our police department and our law enforcement partners will work tirelessly to get those answers. But now our job as police officers is to be there for this family, to support them in any way that we can, to come together as a city, to be there for these families of the victims. And we will continue to do that because that's what New York City police officers do. And we're going to continue as police officers to go out and protect this city because we know that evil can strike at any time. But police officers are willing to risk their lives to protect everyone in this room and protect everyone in this city. So we ask all New Yorkers to pray for our police officers' family, to pray for all the victims and their families. And we need to stand united going forward. We thank you for covering this story.
Yeah, we are also joined by our federal partners from the ATF and the FBI. I want to give an opportunity to our partner in the FBI, a special agent in charge of the New York City Fields Office, Chris Rea.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, on behalf of all the men and women of the FBI, I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the victims of this senseless tragedy. And also personally, I want to extend my condolences to the police commissioner. And just please know, ma'am and Mr. Mayor, that you have the full force of FBI New York and the full force of FBI to get to the bottom of the answers. Upon learning of the incident this evening, FBI agents immediately deployed to the scene to assist our NYPD partners. While this remains an NYPD investigation, the FBI's New York office stands ready to provide any and all resources to assist our partners. Initial checks of our internal systems have not revealed any information about the subject. But when and if more information becomes available, we will share what we can, when we can, with the public. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do some on-topic questions, folks. Start with CNN, please.
Just a quick question about the police officer. When he was standing in the lobby, did he have a chance to fire his weapon at the shooter, or was he completely hampered? And also, when the shooter got to the floor, approximately how many people were on that floor and what were they doing?
All of this information is under active investigation. Videos are being reviewed. And as this investigation continues to unfold, we'll be able to answer those questions. But right now, it's an active investigation.
Commissioner, if you could just talk about, he was working day detail there, to people who might not know what that means, and was he the only officer working that day detail there?
I believe that there were 2 officers in the building working pay detail assignments in different parts of the building.
And what is that? People, may say he's on his day off working in uniform.
Paid detail is a program that we have set up at the police department that allows companies to hire officers in uniform to provide extra uniform security. I already described what we found in the vehicle, and it's too early in the investigation to discuss anything more. As I said, too early in this investigation to tell, but nothing that we have seen preliminarily.
Commissioner, can you talk about what the medication was that was found in the vehicle?
I cannot.
Can you speak about any prior law enforcement contact you may have had?
I cannot, other than to say that our partners in Las Vegas made us aware of a mental health history.
Yes, sir. What's your
That's what I said already. It was an M4 rifle, and we also found a revolver in the vehicle with ammunition and magazines. He did have a license in the state of Nevada. At this time, it's too early in the investigation to tell.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Andrew Kraft back here. As you can see, the demeanor on Commissioner Tisch's face, the very lengthy pause at the very beginning of the press conference by New York City Mayor Eric Adams just shows you the gravity, the weight of this tragedy that has now befallen the Big Apple there in New York City. And you can see it, you can feel it on their faces and in their body language. 7:45 here on the West Coast, 10:45 there in New York City on the Upper East Side, outside New York Presbyterian Hospital. We do have some of our experts still waiting in the wings to help us make sense of what we know. We're going to recap that very press conference that you just watched and you just listened to live.
And this is a special edition of America's Late News, Fox News at Night, as we continue our breaking news coverage of the mass shooting in New York City. It happened in Midtown on 51st and Park Avenue, where a 27-year-old man named Shane Tamura from Las Vegas walked into the 44-story high-rise on Park Avenue with a long rifle. We have seen the picture many times. The picture has been out there, and they have confirmed the name. It is an M4 rifle. We are told that he left his black BMW that he drove.
Tonight, police swarming this skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan after at least 2 people were shot, 1 police officer and 1 civilian, according to 2 senior law enforcement officers. 4 senior New York City officials say the suspected gunman, Shane Devin Tamura of Las Vegas, is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the 33rd floor of the building. Earlier, the NYPD circulated this photo of a person with a long gun they say they were searching for in connection with the shooting, according to 3 senior law enforcement sources. The building, 345 Park Avenue, is the headquarters of the NFL, Blackstone, and accounting firm KPMG.
This is Blackstone headquarters, 345 Park Avenue, approximately 100 people hiding.
It all began around 6 p.m. as people were heading home for the day. Those inside told to shelter in place. You can see the section of Midtown Manhattan is completely cordoned off. A large police presence. 345 Park Avenue is just down that way. I was just speaking to one man who did not want to appear on camera. He told me that his wife is inside the building. She's on the 23rd floor. She says she's okay, but he's waiting for her to get out. Tonight, there is a massive police presence, but the NYPD says the scene is contained.
Aaron joins us now live from the scene. And Aaron, you're learning more about some of the chaos that unfolded inside the building.
That's right, Tom. We're hearing some harrowing stories of office workers inside the skyscraper at the time of this shooting, grabbing anything they could, tables, couches, office chairs, to create a barricade to stop the shooter from entering their place of work. We're also hearing from the NYPD tonight say that they believe that this was the work of a lone gunman. Tom?
Okay, Aaron McLaughlin with a lot of new reporting there. Aaron, we thank you for that. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch.
Here now with more Fox News contributors. We have Nicole Parker, Paul Morrow with us. Nicole, senseless shooting, no rhyme or reason that we can put together at this point. It's too early. Our prayers obviously go out to the family of this officer, similarly to the other 4 civilians that were killed here. Thoughts on what we can put together at this point?
Obviously, it's very soon to put much together, but I'm just going to go through a few thoughts that I have as an investigator. The subject is allegedly from Las Vegas, deceased at this point, apparently a suicide, but I would want to know everything about their travel. When did they come to New York? What were their travel patterns? Who booked those flights? Was there surveillance, video surveillance that they picked up that showed him casing the building? Who does he know in the building? Where does he work? Does he know someone on one of those floors? Obviously, to me, it appears to be a targeted act of violence. But again, there are many things that investigators do not know. But now that we do have a subject named, the FBI and other law enforcement are putting together a profile. Everything about their social media. Was there leakage that indicated that they intended to do this? Were there things where they were dissatisfied in their life? What was their job like? What was their personal life? Were there financial struggles? Sean, we are seeing random acts of violence in our country on a nonstop basis. We have shootings on an hourly basis, it seems, these days. It is disgusting, it is wrong, it is despicable, and we should not have to live in fear. But you know what? I commend this NYPD officer. Thank you to her She paid the ultimate sacrifice today, and my prayer goes out to the 4 others and any others. Right now, the number is obviously not going to be confirmed, but these are people that did everything that they could, I'm sure, to save their own life, but to protect others. And I saw the images of those in the office. I believe it was Blackstone or another office. And they took the furniture, the file cabinets, everything that they could, and they put it up against the door. And that is exactly what we are trained to do. In law enforcement, we train civilians and officers. Civilians, you run, you hide, and you fight. And that is exactly what it appeared that they did.
And I think, Paul, that Nicole is right on the money when she says that this looked like a targeted attack. It doesn't seem random to me. In this building, the confirmed companies are Blackstone, the NFL was in there, KPMG, Rudin Management Company, Bank of America were all in there. It doesn't seem like this one building was randomly chosen. The questions that Nicole asked, I think, are spot on. What else would you be asking? Is there anything you can glean from the companies that we know had offices in this building?
Well, the only thing I would add is that in addition to choosing a particular building in the middle of a very target-rich environment here in Midtown Manhattan, he chose a particular floor, apparently. And so, you know, it's a little bit unclear. You know, it's the 33rd floor reportedly, and so he would have taken the elevator. He's not walking up 33 floors. So he got on that elevator, he pressed 33 for a reason. And as I was saying earlier, if in fact there was a specific target there, as in a person, well, that person likely knows him, knows who he is, unless unfortunately that person is deceased. So they're certainly going to be looking at why did he shoot, who he shot, was he looking for a specific person, which could answer all of this out. Is the person he was looking for perhaps among the wounded? And that goes to the idea that a scene like this is very, very chaotic. So if you're running it, and they're going to have somebody chief level running this thing, you're going to have people at the hospital with the wounded. Are they in a position to be debriefed? Can you talk to them? Did he say anything while shooting? Do you know him? Had you seen him before? Had he applied for a job? Because the reporting I got is that he wasn't currently employed there. So these are the kinds of things that I think you're going to be gleaning as you work backwards from where he did it, how he did it, but the why is what everybody wants to know. And, you know, that's not an irrelevant factor. We often say when we're talking about trials as lawyers, well, you know, motive doesn't matter. You don't need motive for a conviction. But here, you want motive because you got to see, is he part of a group? Is there another piece out there that may continue to do whatever he did? Is the car booby-trapped? By now, they likely have cleared it. Is his home booby-trapped? Did he have some sort of political edge? Right now, the why is a very salient question, and that's something they're pulling at hard.
Yeah, let me go back to you, Nicole, on this issue of, well, first of all, what an odd scene of anybody in Midtown Manhattan in New York City, where it is nearly impossible to get a pistol carry permit, concealed carry permit, which I did have when I did live in New York. For the city, it is nearly impossible to get one of those, I can tell you that. And to watch somebody walking through with a long rifle like this through the streets of New York is the strangest thing. The fact that nobody saw that is even more odd, knowing how congested the area is. Thoughts?
First of all, this person had no shame in what they were doing. Okay, I've seen a lot of mass shootings and behavior that leads up to it. A lot of times they'll hide the gun, they'll put it in a gun case, they'll put it in something. This guy's walking around with a rifle in the middle of Manhattan. And again, we don't know that other people hadn't seen it, hadn't called the police on him. We don't know that yet, but he had not been approached yet by law enforcement. We'll just leave it at that. And so, yeah, this is not something that you see every day in New York City. New York is known to have very tight gun laws, but as I have always said in my job, criminals that are set out to kill people, they don't care about gun laws. Okay, they have no respect for laws. If they're willing to shoot someone and kill someone, they do not care. And so this person is so brazen. He actually wants to be seen. Yes, he looks a little low key, a little muted. Maybe, you know, the black blazer, it appears to be black pants, white shirt, carrying around a rifle in Manhattan, you know, sunglasses, but not a very, you know, he definitely wanted to be seen. He wanted this moment to be known. And again, going in and just taking out the security officer. He had to have known that there were a number of people that were going to see him. This was going to be picked up on video surveillance. Nothing was going to stop him. But again, going back, I think I love to appear with Paul because as investigators, his NYPD experience, FBI experience, it is so important to think about how these investigators are piecing this together. It is so sad and tragic, but right now, law enforcement, they're going through the line of questioning. What do we need to do to solve this case? Who is this person and why was he here? So what was the precipitating stressor, Sean? What was it that caused this man to say, today is the day, around 6:30 p.m., I'm going to go into Midtown Manhattan and I'm going to do this? And again, the fact that we believe that he had a concealed weapons permit from Las Vegas, that says a lot. He had to travel. And we've seen a pattern in New York now. Like we said, the United Healthcare shooting with the CEO. That was someone that was, they were going to go in, they were going to commit this crime, and nothing was going to stop him. So again, he does not appear to be tacked out, in my opinion, in law enforcement, tacked out. He didn't appear to really be tacked out. I don't see a ballistic vest underneath that. We can't see that at this point. But did he have suicidal ideation? Had he manifested any sort of suicidal ideation prior to this? Were there people around him that knew him? The moment that he's been identified, law enforcement, FBI, NYPD, locals in wherever jurisdiction he comes from, they're, again, pulling up the full profile, talking to family members, friends, looking at medical records, looking at financial situations. His work situation, very, very important and crucial to look at right now. But again, it's mind-boggling to me that people have so much nerve to do something like this in Midtown Manhattan. But Sean, this is not the first time that we've seen this. Like, this is happening all too frequently in our country.
Paul, I do have a fairly large gun collection, and the modifications that are needed in New York State for a lot of weapons to conform to their laws, they're pretty extensive. He's not from New York. The question is, did he get the weapon in New York? How long has he been in New York? Did he have such a rifle with modifications as prescribed by laws in New York? These are questions I'd like to know. Did he somehow drive this to New York? Did he fly to New York? I'd like to know the answer to all those questions.
Yeah, I suspect the police have those answers already in terms of how he got here, because you can go into various computer systems to ascertain if there was a flight under his name, and his name is out there now. It's starting to hit online and in the media. So they're going to be able to ascertain, okay, has he bought a ticket recently? That means they're going to get to his credit cards. They're going to, you have to give good ID. These days you have to use the real ID, actually, to even get on a domestic flight. So if he took a flight, they'll know that. And if he rented a car at the airport, obviously they'll know that. If he drove, they're going to probably know that as well. These days, almost all cars are rolling computers. They know how to do this. The auto crime guys will come in, they'll rip the car, they'll download the computer, they'll get the computer's travel. Most of them have GPSs and all kinds of things in them. The Garmin is built in and all that stuff. So the cops, I suspect, NYPD at the presser that's upcoming, they may not say it, they may not put it all out, but there's a very good chance that they can give us his travel log. As far as the gun goes, well, you know what? They have the gun. And I can tell you right now, they're going to be accessing all those systems. You pull in the ATF, and you're going to be able to do a good trace on that gun to ascertain where it was bought, how it was bought. And as far as it being difficult to buy in New York, it's harder than ever in New York City. I shouldn't say than ever, because it's starting to change because of the Supreme Court decision. But it is very hard, I should say, to buy guns in New York City. But if you leave New York City and you go, let's say, upstate New York, it becomes a lot easier. It's big hunting territory. Now, the modifications he did, there's always way around these things. You know it and I know it, Sean. So we'll just have to wait and see how he did it. The one thing I would pull from the gun, though, just intuitively, is the fact that, look, he went in without expecting to get out. If he was looking to do something clandestine, surreptitious, not draw a lot of attention, use a handgun, right? You take the handgun, you stuff it in your pocket, and you can get up, to the 33rd floor without a lot of people seeing you. This tells me, with a weapon like that, he was ready to shoot it out with whoever came along if he had to. So this does look to me like a suicide mission. It looks to me like he went in ready to inflict maximum damage on whatever his target set was, and he did not expect to be leaving that building.
Yeah. All right, Nicole Parker, Paul Morrow, please stay with us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Good evening. I'm Trace Gallagher, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 11 o'clock here in New York City, and this is a special edition of America's Late News, Fox News at Night, as we continue our breaking news coverage of the mass shooting in New York City. It happened in Midtown on 51st and Park Avenue, where a 27-year-old man named Shane Tamura from Las Vegas walked into the 44-story high-rise on Park Avenue with a long rifle. We have seen the picture many times. The picture has been out there, and they have confirmed the name. It is an M4 rifle. We are told that he left his black BMW that he drove from Las Vegas through Colorado, through Nebraska, and then through New Jersey into New York City around 4:30 or so this afternoon. He double parked that black BMW, and he got out and he walked, as you see there, with the M4 rifle up to the steps of the building at 345 Park Avenue. He walked into the lobby, and then he turned right. And there was a woman behind the pillar, and as Paul Morrow said, he sprayed the lobby. And in doing so, he shot and killed a police officer, 36-year-old Daddario Islam. He then went to the elevator bank, and a woman walked out of the elevator, and she was not harmed at all. He let her walk out. He got into the elevator and proceeded to make his way up. We want to bring now the person on the scene here, Nate Foy, who was live there. Want to bring him in here. And Nate, give me an idea of what else you're learning. What are you hearing at the scene of the crime?
Well, Trace, it is still an active scene. The NYPD is leading it. You heard the FBI supporting as well as the ATF. But we knew going into that news conference that an NYPD officer had been killed. What we didn't know is who they were. And we're now putting a face to that story. And we now know the tragic details of that officer's personal life. It's always a tragedy anytime anybody is killed. But this officer had 2 young boys and a wife who was pregnant with another child. You mentioned his name, Daddario Islam, a 3.5-year veteran of the NYPD, served in the 47th Precinct, an immigrant from Bangladesh, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams described him as a man of faith and said that he wanted to live a godly life and that he was doing his best, he was doing his job. When at 6:28, this man, 27-year-old Shane Tamura, according to the NYPD, arrived in New York City. You mentioned after making a cross-country drive from Nevada, he got to New York City, double parked, got out of a BMW, walked in and shot that officer and killed him. And then also, as you mentioned, got into an elevator, shot someone else in the lobby, and then went up to the 43rd floor, which is a bit different than some of the preliminary reports. We initially thought that it was the 33rd floor, but you heard NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch say it's the 43rd floor, which is where Rudin Management is located, which is a real estate firm. BlackRock is in the same building as well as the NFL. Rudin Management had not been previously reported until Commissioner Tisch explained that was on the 43rd floor where that gunman continued his rampage and then ultimately shot himself and killed himself by shooting himself in the chest. So just a lot of terror here on the streets of New York City. People so concerned, not only here still this late at night, but of course the people who were closer to the scene when it happened. I personally have been speaking with 2 people who are somewhat related to the scene. One person, her sister worked here and was getting a salad, came back from Sweet Green, and then saw people sprinting out of the building and then immediately ran to a subway station. And then I'm told by another personal contact that his daughter's friend works here, and she hid in a kitchen when she heard those shots, either on the 1st floor or on the 43rd floor. And we've seen pictures coming in on social media that we've shown you throughout the night of people barricading themselves within that building.
So this could have been a personal vendetta where it was a relationship, work relationship, personal relationship, where he knew the victim or the intended victims, or it could have just been, I guess, a corporate grudge. Maybe he had identified a certain executive in a certain company through
inside a
the
Manhattan
news
office building
and
has been
targeted him that way.
neutralized. A law enforcement official tells CNN tonight that 4 people are dead, including an NYPD officer on the scene. Police believe that a man with a long rifle walked into a Park Avenue skyscraper just north of Grand Central Station this evening, with law enforcement sharing this photo of the person believed to be the gunman entering the building. You can see there in broad daylight with a massive gun in his hand. It's that building that houses the corporate offices for the National Football League, Blackstone, and the accounting firm KPMG. Multiple law enforcement officers tell CNN the shooter was found dead inside the building from what officials believe to be a self-inflicted injury. Right now, the New York Police Department says they believe the shooter acted alone. And this hour, the mayor, Eric Adams, says police are searching the 634-foot building floor by floor. The FBI is on the scene right in the middle of the country's largest city to assist with the investigation tonight. I want to go straight to CNN's Shimon Prokupecz, who is live on the scene in Midtown Manhattan. And Shimon, you've been there for hours watching as this developed. Obviously, we can still see behind you there is a massive police presence still on the ground. What is the latest so far that you're learning?
Yeah, Caitlin, the scene out here remains active, almost as active as when I got here around 7 p.m., just 20 minutes after all of this unfolded. And when I first got here, the scene was just harrowing. I saw officers with long guns and tactical gear racing up Park Avenue, going into that building, going into a nearby building, searching for people, making sure they could get people who may be in harm's way out safely. They went into all of these buildings, searching floor by floor. And as you said, the search still ongoing. As you can see behind me, I'm going to step out of the camera so Rod could show you. Many of the officers are still here. There are fire department officials. There are several ambulances. As you said, the number of dead has grown. The police and emergency officials still very much searching the building, still here in the area. This has turned into a crime scene. Also significantly, a off-duty police officer who was working a paid detail here, which we see all across the country really, and really in New York City, where there are off-duty officers who are allowed to wear their uniforms, and they work to make extra money. It's essentially a way for them to make extra cash. And that's what this officer was doing, standing outside this building when the gunman shot him. And luckily, perhaps in some ways, this may have prevented a much larger tragedy, this interaction between this off-duty officer and the gunman. So we are now waiting for the NYPD and for the mayor and other New York officials to hold a press conference. Things are somewhat slowed now because of the death of this officer. The NYPD needs to gather this officer's family members, bring them to the hospital, inform them of what happened. And certainly they want to do that, Caitlin, before they have any kind of press conference, make sure all the family is aware, make sure they notify the other victims. One of the eerie things, and I can't get this out of my head, is when I got to this scene, watching people in the building, and the building is just over my left shoulder here, watching the people in the windows who were in that building where the gunman was believed to be, standing there trying to figure out what was going on, and the NYPD just flowing in, running towards the building. It was such a chaotic scene in some ways, but also such a frightening scene, because even for those officers who were arriving here, if they weren't wearing tactical gear, they were being told to stay off Park Avenue, to go down the side streets, just in case the gunman started firing out of that building and this became a sniper situation. So that was the scene that was unfolding. Obviously much different now. Police are working this scene, and now sadly notifying family members, gathering those family members before they release any more information. They know a lot about the gunman at this point. They are working through that information, Caitlin. So we're waiting to hear more from officials. But certainly some frightening moment out here, Caitlin.
It's gut-wrenching to think about what one family is going to get that phone call tonight, and just devastating. I was talking to some other police officers here in New York earlier when they learned that this officer had been killed. And Shimon, I think you make an interesting point about just the unknowns here and the confusion as this was all happening, people in this office building. I mean, can you just put in perspective for people who don't live in New York, what part of town this is in, what this looks like? I mean, it is a very busy area at that hour as we were learning about this happening and just trying to figure out what was going on.
So this is Park Avenue, Midtown. I would call it Midtown, the east side of Midtown. You know, actually, people will know this. We're just blocks across the street from the Waldorf Astoria. This is the famous Waldorf Astoria Hotel that is just reopened. You know, we're not far from the St. Patrick's Cathedral. There are a lot of financial institutions on this street. JP Morgan Chase just opened their new building here. So there are a lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions, a lot of law firms on this street. We are about now 7 blocks from Grand Central. So this is really a part of New York City with a lot of corporate space, with a lot of office building, high-powered individuals. You're talking about in this building, Blackstone, you're talking about the NFL. So when the NYPD got that call, I mean, this is something they train for. But I have lived in the city my whole life. I have worked in the city. I cannot recall a situation like this before. And to see the NYPD respond in this way was quite gut-wrenching, to see them running towards where they believed this gunman was.
Yeah, especially as we've learned tonight, one of their colleagues has been killed. And as we are still learning more, Shimon Prokupecz will check back in with you as we get more news throughout the hour. I also want to bring in CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller. And John, I know you've been speaking with sources and learning more about the profile of the suspected shooter. What more do we know about him at this hour right now?
He's a 27-year-old man. He apparently drove to that location by car, although we don't know from where he drove. He starts off life in Hawaii, where he was born, went to, looks like high school, then shifts to Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, we are told by sources who are developing the background on this individual that he obtains a private investigator's license. Don't know at this point whether that was with a larger firm with more experienced people, or if this is something that he did to start his own business. It does require some experience to get the license. Then we also are told that he has a concealed carry permit to carry concealed weapons, handguns, in Las Vegas from the Las Vegas Sheriff's Department there. They are on the way to his residence and are there now, where they are locking that down to determine who does he live with, what family members are there, what information can they glean from them, and if he lives alone, to secure that residence so that when they get a search warrant, they can first make sure that that is safe, looking with the bomb squad for any booby traps or anything else, and then conduct a search, very much like what we have seen in other similar cases, whether it was the attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day or the attack on Las Vegas later that same day. This is a thing where you're putting together that profile of the suspect, because what they want to know is, what was it that brought him there? First, what they want to know is, was he acting alone? From all appearances, so far that's the case. But what brought him to that building? What was the target, which would tell us what was the motive? We know that in his younger days, his life was all about football. And we know that the NFL headquarters is in that building, but it's not on the floor where he was found or where he targeted additional people, which was far above that. So they're really putting together the pieces.
Well, and John, when they're putting together those pieces, I mean, two things. When you say that he had a private investigator's license and also a concealed carry permit, I mean, as you're putting this together and you're looking at this image, I mean, just alone, that image is beyond striking, to see someone just in broad daylight in the middle of Manhattan with a massive gun in his hand, walking into this office building. Obviously, there's tons of people on the streets of New York. He could have targeted any of them. He's going into this building. I mean, if you are law enforcement and you're digging into his background, knowing those three things, what are the immediate questions that you're asking yourself tonight?
Well, the first immediate question is, let's make sure he was not acting in concert with someone else. That's been going on since the first minute. But the second question, and that can be asked at a much slower pace, is what connection does he have to that building? What connection?
I was just checking some of the social media posts, and Mayor Eric Adams did post on X on his verified account, and it was posted less than a minute ago, and he writes, the NYPD is continuing to investigate the shooting incident in Midtown this evening that tragically struck down a police officer and injured a civilian. We extend the deepest sympathies to the officer's family and urge New Yorkers to avoid East 52nd Street between Park and Lexington Avenues. There's still much to be done in my administration's efforts to eradicate violent crime. The dedication displayed this evening by New York's finest is certain to get us there.
We want to bring in former NYPD Sergeant and Adjunct Professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Felipe Rodriguez. And Felipe, from what you're seeing right now, what would you say that the NYPD and all the investigative agencies are doing right at this moment? What are they trying to find out?
At this point, remember, the most important thing is let's find out who this person is. All right. There seems to be a great deal of concern with that vehicle. As you can see, they were processing it. And what we have here is multi-layered, multi-agency response. We have K9 out there. So what NYPD is doing is working at 100 miles an hour to try to identify this person, see if there's any co-conspirators or anything else or any immediate threats that we should be aware. You can see the individual. I was able to get a picture of him. He walked into that building very nonchalantly. And, you know, it's almost like the way he was strutting in there, it was almost like he was on a mission. As we know, he did have a long gun, which is once again, that poor officer that had to engage them was already outgunned from the beginning. Because you got to remember the type of ammunition that comes out of these, long rifles, be it a 7.62 or 223. These are high velocity rounds, and they do inflict maximum damage. This poor officer had to basically, had to shoot out, and he was already outnumbered to begin with.
We can only imagine that Felipe, he may have been wearing some gear himself to protect himself, correct?
Yeah, it does. We have our standard, 3A, what you call level vest. But once we start talking about this type of ammunition, the velocity is, I'm a firearms instructor, and the velocity and what I've seen and the type of damage that this does to the human body makes it very difficult for people to survive with this type of firearm,
And when you're looking at this now, we see what appears to be video from earlier. We see police officers running around. So this would be video from earlier, perhaps right about when it happened. Christine and I were talking about the use of cameras. It's probably pretty likely that these cameras had already traced the fact that he went in the building and likely didn't come out. Does it happen that quickly in real time?
I mean, we do have the Retail Crime Center. That was one of the things that was a couple of years back. It was started. It is state of the art. You'll be amazed how many cameras we have actually out there that are able to, at the speed of light, bring information not only to the officers, themselves in that office. With the NYPD cell phones that every officer is issued, it's almost an instantaneous level. The way this information can be disseminated in a matter of seconds. So you know what? It does give sometimes a great tactical advantage. And at least when these officers were responding, they saw the type of weapon he had, and they knew that, it was a real, active shooter, imminent threat situation.
Well, Felipe, we're learning some new information. Perhaps you can comment on it. We understand that the suspect entered with, as you pointed out, an AR-style rifle, a long gun, and went to the 33rd floor and opened fire. And that's where also the two NYPD officers who were working in a security capacity were hit. So we know, it appears at least, Felipe, that he knew where he was targeting. He would, if he went to the 34th floor.
Yeah, he didn't engage anyone else, as we can see, so he kind of knew what he was going to do from the beginning. So possibly an ex-employee at this time. And the most important thing is, we need to ID him because we need to find the motive. The motive is key to everything. We don't know if this is a lone wolf attack, if it's something that's, coming from some sort of Middle East threat or anything like that at this point. So the key thing is, we need to ID him. We need to make sure that those, and you can see how they're processing the scene. They are concerned about improvised explosive devices. That's why they took that measure of being able to harness that type of hook on that vehicle, not physically opening it out themselves, their officers. So there is concern. After we identify this individual, hopefully either through cell phone records, because it also becomes a forensic investigation where we have to look at, cell phone and where he's been and everything else. We want to get to his residence. We want to do a search warrant and get as much information as we can.
We're looking at a security camera footage, a still photo that was taken from that of the suspected shooter. He is dressed in plain clothes. Yeah. He has a blazer on. He has a button-up shirt on, sneakers, and then you see the long gun. This is before he enters the building. He's clearly on his way to go through those revolving doors. But let's concentrate again. I think that it's really important to make this point that the shooting, he went up to the 33rd floor. Right. So clearly
he knew exactly where he wanted to go.
He knew where he wanted to go. Please elaborate on that.
Correct. Like I said, I could tell the mannerism he was walking from the video and the still photos, and you see that extended magazine. You have a person there that's minimum. And I'm just saying, of course, from the angle and everything else, that's a minimum 30-round magazine. So if you think about it, you know what? This is the type of ammunition and the type of weapon that we get people to actually engage in combat. So he went up there, he knew what he was doing, he hit only one specific floor, and I'm amazed that, he was still willing to do it, because if he had any sort of intelligence beforehand, it's usually the same officers work the same details, or they constantly have NYPD working in an off-duty capacity, and that he was willing to engage with them like that. It shows, that's just brazen. And that's something you don't see every day.
And talk about brazen and talk about something you don't see every day. This man walking in, apparently when he got out of his vehicle, he must have taken that long gun out of maybe a bag or something. But look at him just brazenly strolling through. Now, I don't know whether people just ran away already, because usually there are people in a courtyard there. But he's walking through like he's just carrying a bag of, a suitcase or something, as if nobody would notice that gun. Or maybe they would, and they'd get the heck out of there as fast as they could, as it appears that they did.
You would think that there's security once you enter this building. Is that a long shot, Philippe? I mean, is that fair to say that there is some sort of security when you enter this building? It's a very prominent building in Midtown.
Correct. I mean, it depends. I can't really, I don't have any information. It has to do, it could have been private security that were unarmed. And at this point, think about it. If you have officers that are fully, trained and armed in the way we prepare our officers, and they had a, difficult time, and look at the results of what happened. We lost one of our own today. And, it's just the fact that the officers didn't really have a chance to wear out guns. Unless they were able to get some information from that private security. Remember, the building is just so vast, so many floors. How many people could you alert at once? You know what kind of public address system? Did they have some sort of code that they could have put over the PA system, or an emergency text or something? There's a lot of different companies that have all the stuff that can send you an immediate, active shooter notification to your phone via email, text. We just don't know the capacities or what kind of equipment they had in that building.
And one more thing, Philippe, I noticed that, as Christine points out, this guy is wearing basically a polo shirt or a long sleeve shirt and a jacket over it. He doesn't appear to be wearing any gear himself, which we frequently see in these shooting situations. Does that tell us anything about the suspect?
It just usually, one thing is, when I see that type of firearm, I see the way he's walking, the way he's dressed. He's looking to blend in, but at the end of the day, you know what? He wasn't afraid to die. Ballistic vests are easy to purchase. You got used stuff out there with these heavy-duty ceramic plates that stops all this, high-powered firearms. It's easy. It's something easy to buy. The same way he had that large capacity magazine in that gun, and it's out there.
Philippe, we're finally able to air some video immediately after the chaos broke out after this shooting. We're always extra careful before we air any video here at CBS New York until we can get it verified, and also obviously this picture. But we're looking at some of the video of just how chaotic the response was because of this clear and present danger of what was known at that time as a man with a long gun who had already shot an officer and some civilians. We see police arriving. We see them jumping over garden islands, some of them clearly approaching with caution, as if somebody could open fire at any moment. And you can certainly just tell from these pictures what a tense scene this was when they approached. Please tell us about, what is going through these officers' minds that are clearly running right into danger and not thinking twice.
Well, I can tell you from 31 years of experience, once, the call comes out, officer down at 1013, your mindset goes into automatic response mode. The most important thing for you at that time is to get there, to make sure your officer is safe, and respond by any means necessary. There's times that I've jumped onto the back of an ambulance and held on when an officer was calling for help. And it's just the most important thing as a cop, to be there for one another. And you know what? You really want to save everybody else also, because that's part of our job. But when an officer goes down, your mindset goes different. It's automatic fight no matter what, and you got to get there. So, I feel for these poor officers that, in this trauma that they're going to have to live with. Those voices never leave your head.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, we did see Mayor Adams on the scene where he is likely being briefed at this hour. But Philippe, as former NYPD yourself, the phrase, you're always on the job. These two officers were working in a security capacity, so outside of the job, but on the job. And that feeling has to be going through everybody who is a former officer, who is an officer who may not be on duty, that at any single moment, something awful like this could happen, correct?
It does, but you put it in the back of your mind that every day you still go out there and answer those huge amount of radio calls that keep coming in, and you do your best to serve the public. But you know what? At the end of the day, these officers have responded. It is trauma. It's hard. But at the end of the day, you put that, the shield back on, you put your vest back on, and you go out and do your job. And we've been doing it for years.
Philippe, how difficult is it, though, to hear the news that you lost one of your brothers and then continue to have to concentrate on the task at hand, to secure evidence, to ensure safety, and to make sure that no stone goes unturned?
It's difficult because, you still have that in the back of your mind. You still have to secure this crime scene. You still have to do a lot of different things, There's a lot that goes on with securing such a massive crime scene. You got to make sure you get every little bit of evidence, because you never know. What if there was someone out there who's actually assisting this individual? You want him brought to justice. Where did he get this gun from? That's going to be another situation where we have to call in ATF, do a gun trace. And that becomes the cornerstone sometimes for the investigation of how we trace these firearms and how we actually arrest additional individuals.
And how frightening is it, the way you describe the power of those rounds that come out of that weapon, how even if perhaps you have a big vest on, at close range, there may be no stopping it. And we know at least one officer tonight lost his life tragically. Felipe Rodriguez, thank you so much for all this information. Former NYPD officer and adjunct professor at John Jay College. Thanks for your expertise.
We are going to start with the breaking news out of New York City. What we know at this hour is this: a man with a gun entered an office building in Midtown Manhattan earlier this evening. Once inside, he did open fire. NBC News is reporting that one police officer has been killed in this attack, and at least four civilians are dead as well. The Park Avenue building where the shooting took place has offices for several major companies, including the headquarters of the investment firm Blackstone. Police released this photo of the man they believe to be the gunman entering the building carrying what appears to be an assault-style rifle. MSNBC is now reporting that the man's name is Shane Devin Tamura, T-A-M-U-R-A, 27 years old. Police say the man appears to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But again, we are also able to report that 5 others appear to have been killed in this incident, including one police officer. Now, the New York Police Department is referring to this suspect as a lone shooter. They are also saying that the scene is now contained. But this is a quickly developing story, and we are learning more with each passing minute. Joining us now is MSNBC investigative correspondent Mark Santia. Mark, I know that this story is developing rapidly. First of all, can you correct if I said anything that's either wrong or now out of date in terms of our latest reporting?
No, Rachel, you're spot on. I mean, there's always, at a time like this, there's always fluid information kind of back and forth, and sort of police are locking everything down right now. They're also going through video right now, Rachel. You mentioned the suspect, the gunman, who police say took his own life inside that building, Shane Devon Tamura. We're hearing he is from Las Vegas, Nevada. Multiple sources tell us there is a vehicle in the area with Nevada plates. So, Rachel, what they're trying to do now is to determine if Shane came in that vehicle, in that Nevada vehicle, if there's any connection there. So there's a lot of motion, there's a lot happening on the ground there right now as detectives sort of try to figure out. One law enforcement source told me, look, the scene is locked down, it's done, we don't have the why. So right now they're trying to figure out the motive right now. This all happened earlier this evening in the heart of Midtown. So Park and 52nd, it's an extremely busy area, especially that time and the afternoon rush. We are told the gunman walked into the building and opened fire. He shot the police officer, the officer who was working a paid detail. So Rachel, the officer was in full uniform in the lobby. He shot the officer in the lobby. Then we're also told he shot a civilian on the 31st floor before he took his own life on the 33rd floor. We're expecting a press conference from the NYPD and the New York City mayor around 10 o'clock this evening there on the scene. We're still waiting, but again, there is a lot. You see as a very, very heavy police presence in this area. Rachel, there's always a heavy police presence in the middle of Midtown right there, but obviously everyone went running to that area. That photo you saw of the suspect, that was disseminated to police officers across the area. They were told to be on the lookout for that person who went into the building with a long gun and then opened fire. We are again told that this, according to the NYPD Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, she said the scene is contained and the lone shooter is neutralized. Rachel, initially there was some question. Did this person work alone? Were there others? We now know that NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch says this was a lone shooter who, again, police sources say took his own life on the 33rd floor of that building. Several companies, including BlackRock, housed in that building. And we are told that that person with that long gun seen right there in that photo in his right hand opened fire, shooting the police officer in the lobby, and then shooting a civilian on the 31st floor. We're hearing he shot at least 4 people. We're told critically injured at this point. We're told he shot at least 4 people in that building before taking his own life. Rachel?
Mark, in terms of, as you say, we don't know the motive here. We don't know more about the shooter than we're able to confirm in terms of name and where he's apparently from. But in terms of that building, we've been reporting, we've been discussing the fact that BlackRock is based there. That's a very prominent, high-profile investment firm. But there's a number of other entities in that building. It's not a single, Blackstone. It's a number of other entities that are in that building. It's not just Blackstone there. Do we know anything about the 31st floor, the 33rd floor, the other sites at which this shooter shot at civilians, or indeed the floor in which he took his own life, and what entities are based on those floors of that building?
No, we're working through that right now, Rachel. That's a very good question. There are several companies housed there, including a very large real estate company that is housed in that building. So we're trying to work that down. Is there any significance about those floors? Was he a former employee? That right now, everything's being looked at by the NYPD detectives, and it's all hands on deck right now for detectives. Several were called in. They're all working this case. They're working this case with several different groups of detectives who specialize in sort of different facets of the investigation. So right now, they're trying to see if this suspect, Shane Tamura from Nevada, if he has any connection, Rachel, to any of those companies in that building. And so that is what's being looked at right now. Is there a possible motive? And is there a connection to those companies or to that specific company. Again, the civilian was shot on the 31st floor. Is there a connection there? And that's what detectives are trying to look at right now. I am being told by law enforcement sources they're reviewing surveillance video. Rachel, you know Midtown. There are a lot of surveillance cameras there in the Midtown area as well as that building. And many of them sort of have a working relationship with the NYPD. They'll share those surveillance videos. They get pumped in to the Joint Operation Command at One Police Plaza. So a lot of those videos are readily accessible. And that's what they're looking at right now. Some of those videos just to try to determine scene is contained, this scene is over, but right now they want to know what motivated this person. Again, it tracks back that he has a Las Vegas address. We are told that there is a vehicle in the area with a Las Vegas, with a Nevada license plate rather, with a Nevada plate that they're looking at right now. They're trying to see if that is connected. And that's right now, Rachel, that's where the investigation is. Again, at least 4 people shot. They're critically injured. We are told 1 police officer shot. We're told the officer has passed away. The officer is dead. And the gunman has taken his own life inside that building on the 33rd floor. But right now, Rachel, the question is,